Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Barbara Hanna, and of course, I'm with,
And Frost.
and we are the Frost Advisory. I'd like to start our session out today by giving a big shout out to our amazing social media manager, Lexi Mason. She's been doing a great job keeping our Facebook page updated, helping us get our videos onto YouTube. She has even started a LinkedIn page for us, which is very exciting as we grow and expand. Today, our topic is servant leadership. Anne and I chose this topic because it is President's Day and thinking about leadership that we've experienced, both, Anne and I have experienced, and the different kinds of leadership and what we think is, and not only do we think it, but research plays it out, servant leadership being the very best type of leadership. But we'll talk a little bit more about what it is compared to authoritarian leadership and give you some things, some food for thought, as we like to do. So, Anne, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, when we were putting this topic together, of course, all this is sometimes when we put these topics together and start talking about the content, it becomes therapeutic for me.
Both of us, yes, for sure.
Because I was thinking about, okay, servant leadership, we'll get into some more details about that, but it's true, Mary Barbara, I think if that's one we can aspire to put into practice, that's where we need to be. So conversely, if it's servant leadership, let's think about the opposite of that. More traditional leadership, the authoritarian style of leadership. So as I was thinking about that, and I encourage everybody out there to think about a time maybe when they had a leader that was all command and control and authoritarian and it's my way or the highway, as Dr. Phil might say, how did that make you feel? All right. And when I think about how it made me feel, I was a number. I was here to do my job. I was told that on many occasions. Oh, here's a good one. You're lucky you have a job.
Yeah.
I was told that. And it's like, okay. So over time, and I think this is what we need to think about, no matter what type of leadership you're talking about, you need to think about that longer term impact. So in all honesty, I was told, you are lucky you've got this job.
Mm-hmm. I think, Anne, if I can interject for 1 minute, I think everybody is sort of raised, the baby boomers. They're, like this isn't a history lesson, but you do have to go back to essentially the Industrial Revolution of the late 1800s to understand, and then hitting the Great Depression in 1929. There's a lot, the people that Aunt and I were raised by, and those people who were raised by their parents were growing up in a time when work would have been difficult to find and it wasn't easy getting a job. And so people really literally could say to you, you're lucky to have this job because you were, because so many people were unemployed. And so, looking and there is joblessness today, and we are dealing with COVID, it's true. But the traditional leadership that we're talking about today stems from this idea before unions, when people were working, 12-hour days, 5, 6, 7 days a week, literally, and we're lucky to have work. So this stems from pretty much, I think, an old, worn out version of what leadership was at a time when people could behave that way and get away with it. And research has shown and continues to show that there's modifications that have taken place and need to take place because our workforce has totally changed from what it was 100 years ago. So
Well,
that's my little input there.
the workforce and the work itself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
um, with that in mind, that it's like, what are some of the impacts of being told you're just here to do your job? You're lucky you have a job. And to me, what happened for me was, it's like I just pulled out that job description and had it in front of me, and it's like, here's what I was hired to do. No more, no less. That was my attitude. Stay under the radar. Just do what's on my job description. There's no initiative taking. There's no trying to exceed expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just a number. My input was not valued. I wasn't asked any questions that would allow me to be creative or feel like I was making a real contribution. So,
Or to even keep you at that place of employment,
Correct.
ultimately.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, retention becomes an issue. You're always having to deal with turnover. And, the research shows that the cost of retraining a new workforce is how many times higher than just trying to keep the workforce you got going. I think it's like
Yeah.
3 or 4 times.
Astronomical. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, it's just kind of snowballs. And it's like, we can solve all your problems. No, would never say that, but it's like, I don't, and maybe that's me just being naive. It's like, why can't other people see that if you invest a little time and energy in the people doing the work, yeah, it's going to take time, a little bit more cash for their development. We need to think bigger picture here. It's an investment in the future and the success of your organization. So when we do have a sense, and that's what I think servant leadership uh, brings to bear, is that when we do have that attitude of I'm taking care of the people doing the work, then they'll start seeing results in those retention, performance, productivity, profitability, all that kind of stuff. So by knowing where we fit in, how our work matters, how it connects to the vision, the mission of the organization, and having a sense that, hey, I'm really contributing to that. It's like, what's not to love about that in an employee? Somebody that, will take initiative, exceed expectations. I ask you, what?
I'd like to know the mission of the little dog on the screen here. This little puppy with his
Oh,
pals.
well,
What's his mission?
I put together this because I thought, well, we need somebody that can carry that load of making sure all the people, no matter how diverse they are,
Yeah.
diversity comes a different set of personal and practical needs. And so we need somebody that is willing to carry that.
I think it's a great picture. I just find it adorable. And I do love that it's, just very different animals and birds and what have you. I mean, just all across the board there, and
Uh,
that they would have significantly different needs.
well, and that's the thing with, I think going back to the a difference between traditional and servant leadership is sometimes traditional leaders just paint everybody with the same brush.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
right.
it's, okay, I'll attend to your personal needs. And by the way, here they are. I'll tell you what, we're going to do this all the same. And then, if you haul me into a court of law, you can't say I didn't
Oh my
attend to your
God.
personal
That's
needs. Here it
funny.
is. Whereas servant leadership, that investment of time and energy and resources in understanding, being keenly attentive to
Mhm.
his or her employees or team members, to know that everybody is different. There will be some commonality, of course, but there's going to be a lot of differences too. So I need to be aware of what those are as I assign tasks, delegate work, you know, put in with other members to create this team, to work on that project, whatever shape or form that looks like. I need to be aware of what those differences are. So, but I have a couple of other slides I want to show you that kind of summarizes some differences between traditional and servant leadership. So as we move on, you will see, everybody should be familiar with this guy at the top of the pyramid. Obviously, this guy's the leader. He's not very happy. And he's taking care of himself and his senior leaders first before he addresses those personal and practical needs of his frontline team members. So we're all probably familiar with that. Whereas servant leadership, we're flipping it on its head. As you can see clearly, the front line, the people doing the work, are the ones that he's lifting up, the ones that he's paying attention to, making sure they're taken care of before his senior leadership or himself. So that's kind of a broad stroked comparison between the two. Another way to look at, pardon the pun, traditional or servant leaders is where they put their focus. So for traditional leadership, it is command and control. You're here to do a job. This is the way I want you to do it. I don't need your input. And oh, by the way, do not question my judgment about why I've chosen to do it this way. And again, you're lucky you have your job. Employees are the tools to get things done. So I don't need to worry about what your needs are or concerns are or what ideas you might have. And it's all about my success as the leader, my status, and my level of achievement. Again, you need to think about the lasting impact of this. Whereas traditional leaders have a tendency to keep people down, servant leadership, on the other hand, lifts people up. So you could see inspire and equip. People know what their expectations are, how they fit into the vision and mission, and they have the tools they need to get the job done. Employees then are the resources, not the tools in this situation, and it's the focus is all about the people doing the work. Any comments, questions, or concerns?
I'm concerned at the size of these glasses. That's a really big face. Um, no, I think, it comes down to, I think back to work that I've done and the blend of leaders that I have worked for. Certainly, I've worked for traditional leaders, and that was typically found in more of the blue collar work that I would have done. More particularly back in college when I worked during the summer jobs, we really were just bodies showing up, and they were, paying us for the summer, and then we all went back to school. And what is the purpose in investing in that person? They're not coming back. They're just here for the summer. Um, but then I was thinking of a time I worked for a man who truly was a servant leader, and when he eventually passed away from cancer, the loss was so devastating, so great, and felt so deeply in the organization that they had a little garden put in and a tree and a plaque with his name and
Aw.
just a way to remember this person. And he was the kind of man that would walk around and say hello to everybody anytime he was in the building. And he knew everybody's name. He knew what, and this was, we call it like how it is when you're working in a nonprofit. Sometimes there's an umbrella group. This was Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries. And then there were lots of little organizations, and we were all in one building. And he was the head of Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries. And then I worked for a little subgroup on a different, a grant underneath all that. Literally sat in the basement in a corner of this building. You know how nonprofits are. But he didn't, like I said, I only met the man a few times, but he always remembered my name. He knew what my job was, and he would ask after me and how my job was going and was I comfortable down here, blah, blah. So there really is, that lasting impact is that was 20 years ago, and I still remember him. And I remember how he made me feel.
I
I
think
still
that's
remember the traditional leaders and how they made me feel, to your point, you know?
just something you said triggered a comment slash question when you said um, it was summer work and
Oh,
there wasn't a lot of investment because what's the point? You're not going to be here. There was a plant manager that I did some training for, and there was a lot at the time for whatever reason. There was a considerate amount of turnover in this
mhm,
company, and so we were talking about turnover, retention, that kind of thing. And so as I was asking questions, trying to drill down and get to an understanding, I said, well, isn't that troublesome when you hire somebody in, they go through the orientation, you're training them, giving them even professional development opportunities, and then they leave the organization? And I asked the question, why are you still investing in this type of employee development? Because this is a regular thing. He said, because I want those people, it, I want them to go out and advocate for this company. Yes, I work there. I didn't stay that long for whatever reason, because there's some things over which you have no control. And in this case, it was pay.
yeah. Oh, right.
So people in the exit surveys he did, that's what it showed. They were leaving because of pay. It wasn't because something happened
Yeah, yeah.
in the company. So he said, I want them to go out and be an advocate for this organization. So if I treat them right, if I take care of them in terms of their personal professional development, they're going to, when asked, why did you leave, XYZ company, they're not going to say because, the boss was miserable or, the job was terrible or whatever. They're going to say, I left because, you know, it was a better paying job. I would have stayed otherwise
Hmm.
because I was being treated fairly,
Yeah.
right?
I had to
So,
write a note about that because that's so important.
so
Because
it's
word does get around, especially where Ann and I live down here in central southeast Ohio. Ann lives over on the west side of Ohio, the west side, southwest side. Um, and all the companies we work with and consult for, this is a big issue, is the turnover rate.
yeah.
And word gets around about where you want to work and who's offering what. And to your point, if you can work at a place that has got great everything and the only challenge is pay, you're more likely to get people to go and work there, even if it's for short term amount
Mhm.
of time, a short
That
time.
attitude was just like light years
Yes.
away from a lot. It's like I anytime this plant manager calls for me to do a training, I am there just because it's like I've never met anybody with that kind of approach, that kind
Hmm.
of attitude
That's a
about
great example.
taking care of their people. So, Mary Barbara, we are talking about servant leadership, and
Yes.
I'm wondering if folks might be interested in knowing more details about
What
servant,
it is.
what
Sure.
it
I'm
is.
So, what it is a set of practices that, when used in a sincere, compassionate, authentic way, will bring incredible results. And we've listed the 10 principles of servant leadership here, as you can see. And of course, we're not going to talk about all 10 of them today. And I'm going to read some notes that Anne had put together about servant leadership because the wording is important and I want to get it right. So, bear with me while I read this. One of the primary methods that a servant leader uses to build a high performing team is seeking input and help from their team in order to achieve the best outcomes. Anne has already mentioned the people doing the work, and we can think back to our great opening slide with that cute dog, trudging along, not unhappy, just doing his job, as we say. But, really that idea, the people doing the work, oh, he's supposed to be the leader. I think it's the people on top of him, the little other animals on top of him, are the most knowledgeable about what the real issues and needs are for a particular task, project, or situation. So remembering that as the leader, we're really pulling together the team to help us move forward and achieve goals. The leader has certain roles that they will accomplish, but turning to those people that serve us, that we work, that not serve us, that we serve, that work with us, because they're the ones that understand their budget. They're the ones that understand what resources are available. They're the ones that really know if there's enough French fries being made, if we have enough cups to make to serve drinks, whatever it is. So, asking for help doesn't make you weak. This is also very important. Asking for help does not make you weak. It's really the opposite. This kind of vulnerability makes you approachable, authentic, and perhaps most importantly, elevates the level of trust you have among your team members. So really taking that all together, that's really the basis of servant leadership is pulling together your team, serving them, understanding that they have the knowledge and skill set and motivation to move your whole company forward and knowing how to do that. So, Ann and I thought that we would cover two of the first two, anyway, of these principles, foresight and conceptualization. Is there anything you want to add, Ann, to what I've said?
Not at this. I'll put an asterisk by this to come.
Okay.
To
Okay.
come
All right.
opportunity. Let's talk
So,
about tonight. What
yeah,
could you tell us?
foresight. So, foresight is the ability to see what will be needed in the future. Again, I'm back to reading my notes. I was trying not to, but then I worry that I'm going to miss something if I don't read them. Uh, so for example, the cliche is true, change happens. So how do we manage change and minimize resistance that so often comes with it? How do we take advantage of the change so that we actually become stronger as a result? We look to our team. After all, they're the ones who have the direct experience. They are, as our little graphics have shown, the frontline workers. So they're also the ones most likely to be impacted by that change. So tapping into their areas of expertise, we've talked about that. But so foresight is the ability to see what will be needed in the future. And that's how, as a servant leader, you know your team, you know what they have, their skills, their abilities, tapping into all that information to help us or help you move forward in achieving the goal. Um,
So let
and
me just, yes, I wanted, I'm literally on the edge of my seat because I want to share another sad example.
oh, okay.
Then I'll
But
take
one meant to inspire.
yes, and then I'll take a collection when I'm finished. It's the idea of involving people in the conversation, bringing folks to the table. I mean, okay, let's be realistic. If I have if I'm the for example, if I'm the team leader and I've got 15 people that report to me, we can't invite me and my entire team to the table. I can, however, come, sit at the table, share some insights, issues, concerns, ideas, opinions, whatever that looks like, and then take that back to my team. It's when you don't invite a representative to the table, to me, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because what happens is, and this is my example, where there was a major event that was being planned. I was going to be generating the bulk of the work for that event. I was not invited to the table for whatever reason. And the way I got my information was at end of the meeting, I was forwarded a copy of the minutes. And then I would have to go across the hall to someone who was at the meeting to get clarification, ask more questions. So I was getting all my information secondhand. Now, the event went off without a hitch. All right. Because I did only what I was supposed to do, no more, no less, because I was not invited to be involved, to be engaged. And that eliminated the level or minimized the level of enthusiasm that I had or willingness to do anything above and beyond. Right. So it kind of put out the fire that might ordinarily have been there. So I think, it's I've run up against some who say, well, we can't invite everybody. It's just everybody will the meetings will take twice as long, and when it's like, who cares? Okay, first of all, follow the agenda, whole other training. Second, it's like you have to look at these things as an investment in your time and energy. It
Hmm.
may take a little bit longer for that meeting. Who cares? The people that are most impacted, the people that are going to do the bulk of the work are there to get clear on what it is in terms of expectations and outcomes. And they're energized, they're enthused. They walk away with a skip in their step and a song in their heart. It's like, how soon can I get started on this?
I think to your point, Ann, I also, as I think back, just the behind the scenes information, what happens is I think sometimes leaders start to worry they might lose control or somebody might they are afraid that somebody else will become the leader over them, and in most situations that's really not going to happen. If you're confident in doing your job, no one's going to take your job away from you. It's when we have a fear that we're not doing our job well and that we're going to be discovered, which means you have some skills to work on there, but so does everybody, and not everybody wants to be a leader. I for one do not want to be the director. I mean, I kind of lead my own little company, if you will. I work for myself. I'm a consultant. But I for one don't want to be the director of workforce and education development at WVUP. I already know somebody who is and she's fabulous at it. Let her be fabulous. I'm happy to be the consultant and get called when the time
Mhm.
is right. I don't want the day-to-day headaches of all that nonsense. So there's plenty of people that don't want your job, right? And if you're good at your job and
Right.
you're competent, you don't have to worry about losing your job to anybody else. So giving people information, not withholding that information, giving people opportunity to participate doesn't undo or take away from you at all. And that's what we're talking about here with foresight. In fact, it actually builds you up because you've opened up those doors and let people come into the room to share and grow together. You've built the team and allowed them to gel and be cohesive.
And thank you for that. It makes a lot of sense for me and hopefully others. Another
Hopefully.
thing I was another thing I was thinking about, pre-recording, was we were talking about leadership in terms of its definition, and I was sharing with you one that I got. It's from a book called Leadership Challenge, and it's, a good leader is one that inspires others who want to then struggle for a shared vision. So that key word to me is inspire,
Hmm.
and that is what a servant leader does. He or she can let go and be the inspiration of why we're doing what we're doing. And connected to that is influence. By me inspiring you, I am then influencing or guiding your behavior in a way so that we can meet and exceed expectations.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Let's move on to conceptualization. That's the other thing,
Okay.
principle, the second principle we're talking about today. And this really comes down to vision and mission. Uh, this is how you go through to get to that, the goals that you've set ahead. You have to know what your vision is, and you have to know what the mission. I said that the last time we were recording. Mission is for your organization. And then once you have those things set, you can come back again to your team and ask for their input. Again, they know the resources available to them. They know what the frontline people need in order to achieve the mission and the vision of your organization. So that's what conceptualization is about, is actually putting the practicalities of it together and then having your team set goals and objectives that they'll be able to use to achieve those things. You could be the authoritarian leader and just tell people what they're going to do. The servant leader is going to ask their opinion and ask for their input and ask for data and research and reports and ideas, right? Coming back to those things. So it's really, I don't know if you have an example of vision and mission, Anne, or something else to add.
No, well, I think no. You go.
That's fine. That's all right. We've gotten the idea. So, there are these 10 principles of servant leadership. The two that we're starting with today talking about is foresight and conceptualization. All of those things mean is to have an idea of where you want your group to go, writing the vision and mission statements to help guide your group to those goals. But the servant leadership is giving everyone on your team that opportunity to play their part and do their part uh, to help you achieve those things. The traditional leader would just tell people what they're going to do. The servant leader asks for input. So
And
that
yeah, and traditional leaders tell them what they're going to do and then basically just walks away. I mean,
exactly
they
right.
don't
Yeah.
ask. There was well, I don't know if this is an exact example, but I do recall a circumstance. A friend of mine just got a new boss, and he walks in and gives everyone like a copy of this book, Message to Garcia.
Oh, right.
Did I tell you this already?
Well, you did, but we didn't talk about it in a
Oh, okay.
recording.
So I'll try to make it brief. But the idea was, it's like his words were, read this book and then we'll talk about it at our next meeting. So, a diverse group of people in the room, although they had basically the same, they were engineers, so they had that in common, but it was men, women, old, young, that kind of diversity. And just the meaning they attached to that was just off, it's everything from we're all getting fired to, you this guy's a lunatic and stuff. And eventually it came around to that whole idea of where are we going? If this is his first day on the job, he's already done something. They couldn't figure out his purpose.
Hmm.
You know, was it shock therapy? Was it he was trying to be inspirational? But as it turned out, he was more on the authoritative side than he was servant leadership, because it came down to, well, I've read this in a book somewhere, and this is the way we're doing it, and did not allow any asking questions for clarification, um, you know, I want to do a good job. I'm just not sure what you mean by this or what direction you're trying to take us. And that to me is a really big point for leadership is people will not follow you blindly. They
No.
want to know where we're going and how we're going to get there. And I think that's where foresight and conceptualization come in. The foresight, here's where we're going to go based on your input, your ideas, your work experience, so on and so forth. And here's how we're going to get there with
Hmm.
your help. And I'm going to take care of you because this probably won't be an easy road to go. There's always a bump in the road, right?
Right.
And I'm going to take care of you, make sure that we all get there. So that whole idea of just coming in and throwing the book on the table, it's like I would really like to follow up with this and say, what was your purpose in that? You know,
I actually think you're hitting on something again, a different training. But when leaders are leaders, especially if they're new managers, there's a level of insecurity because they got the job because they were good at what they were doing, not because they're good managers. And so if you're new to being a manager or leading a bigger team, whatever, however you grow, the higher up you go, there's always going to be some level of insecurity. And perhaps this person was attack them before they attack me.
pretty
Like,
bad.
put them on the back foot and get in there right away and just tell them how it's going to be while I'm in my office trying to figure it out anyway.
And now the
Imposter syndrome, right? I mean, some people have imposter syndrome. We all do probably at some point. And, I work at a level at which I feel comfortable. I've taken on jobs where I did not feel comfortable at all, and grew and learned to, navigate those waters. But, that's also we're professional facilitators. So our job is to always be kind of in these uncomfortable situations and get used to it. But anyway, that's what that guy makes me think is that he didn't know what he was doing. Obviously, he didn't know what he was doing or he was insecure. And his way of getting things going was just, to your point, be your traditional leader. And that way, no questions asked. And that way, I can't look stupid
right,
or unknowledgeable because nobody has a chance to ask and find out.
right, for sure. To get
So,
clarity around that. Yeah.
exactly.
Right. So
Is that it? Oh, no, we have
a
one.
final thought.
Yes.
I read this somewhere and I thought it was a quote by Anonymous. That's the research I've found. Somebody knows who said this. Please let us know. All I found is it's by Anonymous. If serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you.
Yeah.
And I think that is obviously, or we would not be doing this today, but I think that's very important consideration that it is all about the people that are doing the work, attending to their personal and practical needs and trying to meet them where they are, being keenly aware
Amen.
of what maybe they're struggling with or an idea they had and they want to bring forward. There's some uncertainty of can I do that? I mean, the list goes on. So my hope is that the next time we're together, we're talking a little bit more about some of the other qualities, characteristics, attributes of a servant leader.
Sure.
And if anyone is interested in one particular, just drop us a note either at the Frost Advisory on Facebook or now LinkedIn.
That's right.
Awesome.
Find us out there.
Yeah, and just let us know what your interests are in terms of servant leadership, maybe some experience you've had that you'd like to share with others.
That would be great too.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we'd love that.
So that's
That's
all,
it.
that's it. That's all I have today.
That's excellent. It's so
Happy
great to be back. Thank you. Happy President's Day to you. And so great to be back and getting our videos uploaded and kind of getting back in the swing of things. We had pre recorded a couple of things and then spaced them out, but now we're actually back to actively recording. So it feels good to be back at it. So, again, thanks to Lexi for helping us and hoping everybody has a great day.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.